First used for Grand Prix racing in 1978 and named after the French Canadian who won that first race. The circuit Gilles Villeneuve perches in the St. Lawrence Seaway and provides the tableau for this 7th event of the season. This is in fact the 50th time that a Canadian Grand Prix has taken place, although the first few races were for sports cars. World Championship Formula 1 came to Canada in 1967 at Mosport Park and also to Mont-Tremblant. But this circuit on Ile Notre Dame has seen 33 Grand Prix, many of them very dramatic events, from Alan Jones beating Gilles Villeneuve in 1979 through first wins for Thierry Boutsen, Lewis Hamilton and Robert Kubica. Often there's a story attached, and last year it witnessed Hamilton becoming the 7th different winner of the season in 7 races. Lewis does love this circuit and he starts from the front row today, but he's got to finish he hasn't finished better than 3rd so far in his Mercedes career, while starting from pole position alongside him is the man who also started on pole last year. That is Sebastian Vettel. Still looking for that first win here in Canada, David, but he's got a great chance because the Red Bull had good pace in the damp, as we saw. It also had good pace in the dry on the Friday running that they did do, and the circuit is looking at its best. It's much drier than it's been all weekend so far.
Well, what's going to be very interesting is the run down to the first corner. It's a short run. It's, well, how long is it, Ben? Check my notes here. It's just about a couple of 100 metres down to the apex. So not a lot of time for the drivers to sort of gain anything off the start. Nico Rosberg there, he'll be focused on trying to get himself in front of Valtteri Bottas. He's going to be the sitting duck in amongst those top cars, apparently running quite high levels of downforce. DRS, of course, making it somewhat easier to overtake around this circuit than others.
So Sebastian Vettel then lines up on pole position, and 3rd consecutive pole here in Montreal for him. Hamilton on the front row, then Bottas, as you say, in the Williams, and Nico Rosberg, winner of Monaco, lines up in 4th place. Mark Webber lines up in 5th place with Fernando Alonso starting in 6th in the fast Ferrari. Jean-Eric Vergne, a great effort in qualifying to be 7th on the grid, his best ever effort. Adrian Sutil is next door in the Force India. Then Nico Hülkenberg has been promoted after some penalties yesterday. Kimi Raikkonen starts 10th. Ricciardo also has a 2-place penalty, starts 11th. Sergio Perez in the McLaren starts in 12th place. He's ahead of the other Williams of Maldonado. It's still Maldonado's best of the year. Jenson Button starts 14th place. Then Esteban Gutierrez in the Sauber, and Felipe Massa, of course, who crashed yesterday. He starts 16th. Paul di Resta all the way down in 17th. Some work to be done there. 18th place for the Caterham of Charles Pic. He's ahead of the Marussia of Jules Bianchi and his teammate Max Chilton. He lines up in 20th place. And then at the back of the field, we've got Guido van der Garde in the other Caterham and Romain Grosjean with that 10-place penalty, but he also missed out in qualifying yesterday, didn't manage to get a quick lap in, and therefore starts at the back. His teammate Kimi Raikkonen needs the points. Remember, he sits 2nd in the championship. He's on 86 points at the moment, whereas Vettel is on 107 points. And if Vettel opens that gap just a little bit more, he's got a whole race win advantage over the others. There's Valtteri Bottas, though. What a brilliant performance by this young Finn. He lines up on the 2nd row of the grid, and there we are. Lewis Hamilton 4th. Front row start this year for Lewis, his 3rd consecutive this season, and he maintains that 100% record of out-qualifying his teammate here in Montreal. Rosberg, of course, starting a little further back in 4th place, but there's Sebastian Vettel, 3rd pole position of the season, breaking that Mercedes streak of pole positions, and he's 7-0 versus Webber. He has out-qualified Mark Webber on every single occasion this year. Track temperature, David, is the highest that we have seen throughout the course of the weekend so far.
Yeah, and that's always going to be the talking point. The tyres in the operating window. A few degrees of track temperature significantly changes the balance of these cars. They've got limited running this weekend on full tanks on a dry track, and that makes it a bit of a voyage of discovery, but that's why they get paid the big buck.
Jenson Button, winner here in 2011, and he was last in that race. He didn't start last, but he certainly dropped it to last, and yet came through to take an amazing victory on that last lap, beating Vettel. It did look as though Vettel was going to win on that occasion, but Button just snatched it away from him on the very last lap. Well, I wonder what he's going to be able to do from 14th position. It's going to be tough. He's been on the podium a few times in addition to that victory. He was 3rd here in his BAR days back in 2004. But Valtteri Bottas, I wonder how he's feeling right now. Going into a Grand Prix, starting the highest he has done. Now, looking at the tyres, it looks like everybody's pretty much on the super soft, the red-walled tyre with the writing on the sidewall. So everybody on the super soft tyre except for maybe Jenson Button.
And Perez, by the looks of it, Ben.
Yeah, Di Resta as well, further back on the medium compound tyre as well. So there are a couple of people just further down.
That's interesting. I wonder if Paul di Resta is looking at trying to do a one-stop this afternoon from out of position, much quicker car than his qualifying grid gave him. So let's look out for whether he can eke out some distance on those tyres.
So Gary, what are your thoughts on tactics and strategy going into this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a two-stop. It is the fastest, but a one-stop's not beyond the realms of possibility. Sergio Perez last year did that and came from 15th to 3rd. So I think for Paul di Resta, personally for me, he's doing the right thing because he's got a quicker car than the people around him. If you've got a faster tyre on, which the Super Soft is probably a second a lap, you know, he's not going to be able to use it too well. So why suffer the consequences of that tyre right now? Later in the race when the car's lighter, they can put the Super Softs on and get a better return out of it. But up front, Super Softs are the right thing, you know, for Sebastian Vettel. He's got to try and get out of the DRS zone, so he needs to go racing. The people behind him need to try and stop him from doing that, so they're going to do the same thing.
What is the limiting factor on the tyres here today, Gary? What should we be looking for?
It is graining on the rear tyres, traction out of these slow corners. You're always getting on the throttle. If you spin the wheels that little bit, the rear tyre just tears the rubber off the top of the surface and just means that's called graining. And then because of the slippage, it causes more tyre pressure, and because of that, you end up with more wheel spin. So it's a spiral to nowhere. So you've got to look after that part of the tyre.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. So it's up to the drivers to a certain extent to modulate that power application. Just seeing the cars heading around on the lap. It's one of the shorter laps, not as short as Monaco, of course, but 2.7 miles long.
And we should mention it's one of the shorter pit stop times as well. It's around 14 seconds, Ben. So that actually lends itself to making extra stops, just to complement what we were saying there earlier about can anyone stay out there and get some clean air on a one-stop.
So Sebastian Vettel leads the grid down on to the starting positions here, and it's Sebastian who is going to try and take his first victory in Canada. But Fernando Alonso had a good run going here last year. Interestingly, both Vettel and Alonso tried to get through on one stop last year, and it went wrong for them. Lewis Hamilton executed a perfect two-stop strategy for his victory, but there were people like Grosjean and Perez who did manage to go through on a one-stop. On board with Valtteri Bottas, starting in 3rd place, and there's going to be some nervousness in the Williams pit. Claire Williams, deputy team principal, I wonder how she's feeling. Quick reminder on the lineup: Vettel and Hamilton on row 1, Bottas and Rosberg on row 2, then Webber and Alonso, then Verne and Sutil, and then we've got Hulkenberg and Raikkonen, Ricciardo and Perez, everybody just moving into position here. Maldonado and Button back in 14th place. Gutierrez and Massa. Di Resta starts 17th ahead of Peak. Then we've got Bianchi, Chilton, Van der Gaard, and starting right at the back, but in a very rapid car. Watch out for him. It's the Frenchman Romain Grosjean. All set to go in Canada then. Lights out, away we go, and Vettel gets off the line very well, but Hamilton has to cover a little bit. Mark Webber makes a good start as well. Valtteri Bottas is being squeezed out, and he's lost out a couple of places already, but he's so far keeping his nose clean. Webber trying to go around the outside of the Williams, but the Williams will still have the inside line. Webber trying to shut the door on the youngster, and he does get in front of him.
Well, great aggressive drive there from Mark Webber. Valtteri Bottas did everything he could to try and hang in there, but in the end, the pace of the Red Bull, just too much for it. He's under a little bit of pressure from Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari now.
Yeah, he's got to watch out. Vettel has got the lead. Hamilton from Rosberg. So Rosberg's gained a place as well, obviously getting past Bottas. Here comes Alonso on Bottas. He's got an opportunity, and we know how good he is on the opening lap, but he's on the outside here, and Bottas makes the most of the inside line. Yeah,
good driving there from Bottas, but Fernando's going to come back at him on the outside down into turn 10. Surely, if he doesn't manage to make it, it looks like if we just see him disappear from our shot, he's slightly ahead.
Round the outside, but that's a long way round, and Bottas just fends him off on the inside there, and he can't go through. Meanwhile, just behind, you can see now Alonso's really picked up the toe down the backstretch, moves to the outside, and this should be more straightforward. No DRS, but he's in front already, although he's just having a little think about coming back, and Alonso covers that.
Well, he did well. He did well, but almost some contact there between the Force India and the Williams.
Hulkenberg across the chicane there, and that's he'll have to maybe give up a place. Raikkonen, long way down as well. He's down in 11th place, Kimi Raikkonen. So not great from his point of view. As the rest of them come around at the end of the lap. Vettel already trying to build up a lead. He's got 2-second advantage. Alonso, there's Bottas, who's now coming under pressure from Jean-Eric Verne in the Toro Rosso. Behind him is Sutil in 8th place, Ricciardo in 9th. And then, as I say, we've got that battle behind. Raikkonen is in fact in 10th, Hulkenberg 11th, so he gave that place up. then Perez, Maldonado, Massa and Button. Button is in 15th place.
We saw the McLaren there, Perez getting a little bit wide as he was going through the exit of turn 7. Let's see if that affects his position as they come down into the second chicane. This stage of the race, heavy with fuel, so having to be a little bit more respectful of the curbs. The car runs lower, of course, with all that weight on board, so there'll be more grounding for the driver. And he just has to respect the braking zones. Bit of action there further down. Is that Felipe Massa looking for a way past Maldonado, and that's going to allow Button the opportunity as Massa gets himself into position. The Williams, he's going to pick up the slipstream, possibly a bit too late to effect the pass down into the last chicane. Maldonado goes defensive.
And Massa trying down the outside, but it's going to be very difficult. He's done it. He's got in front. Felipe Massa takes Maldonado, and that moves him up into 13th place. Massa coming from the back after the accident in qualifying, of course. And there's Kimi Raikkonen further down than he would like. He's down in 10th place with a car that the other teams reckon is going to be in great shape here now the temperature has climbed. And we've got track temperatures of 30 degrees, so it's still climbing.
Well, meanwhile, at the front, Vettel went across the line 2.8 seconds ahead of Hamilton. So crucially, he's broken the DRS zone, which will be open on this lap. So once again, Vettel exploiting the pole position, opening a gap, and now it will be into, you know, the tortoise and the hare. Who's going to be one stopping, who's two stopping? How are they going to manage these tires? Just
looking down towards the back, I don't quite know what happened at the back, because Guido van der Garde, who was right down at the back, is in 17th place. He's ahead of his teammate Charles Pic, ahead of both Marussias. Grosjean is in 20th. He's sort of in between that little group, but Guido van der Garde had an amazing first lap. Maybe there was some bunching going on towards the back. You're looking at Felipe Massa there. He is in 13th place, and his next target is Sergio Perez. There's the race leader. Gap back to Hamilton. There he is. Then it's Rosberg in 3rd, so the Mercedes running 2nd, 3rd, then Webber and Alonso in 5th. Bottas is still holding on to 6th place from Verne and Sutil. Then Ricciardo and Raikkonen, Hulkenberg's in that next little group as well. He's being chased by Perez. Then it's Massa in the Ferrari, followed by Maldonado, Button and Di Resta. And Di Resta, David, hasn't really been able to do much. He's still down in 16th, but it's early days.
Well, I think he might be playing the long game, so having to think a little bit more about preserving those tyres, as Gary Anderson mentioned. It's rear grip that is the big issue. If you spin up the tyre, ask too much on traction, then you end up running out of rubber later in the race.
Another look at the start then.
Well, it's a fairly sensible getaway for everyone. You can see that Mark Webber was able to get up alongside Bottas, and as he was squeezed in through turn 1, then Mark Webber trying to go around a little bit the outside of Nico Rosberg and the Mercedes. That allows Bottas to come back at him as they go through the kink running up towards turn 3, but in the end he sensibly backs out of it. You know, this is the first time they're actually running on this day in history with this amount of fuel. Here we see Raikkonen just bogged down a little bit on the second phase of the start, but positions himself on the outside of the Sauber, backs out of it as if the Sauber gets a little bit up close and personal to the Toro Rosso. See the McLaren of Perez around the outside. Well, Raikkonen checking his mirrors as he runs up to the first chicane, excuse me. And all the excitement, I missed this one. I love this camera angle from Bottas. What a feeling for him as he glances in his mirrors. He knows that Webber's sneaking up the inside. He's getting squeezed a little bit from the Mercedes, but very mature, sensible driving from the young Finn.
Yeah, and here he just decided to let Webber have the place. Looking at a replay here of Massa when he got past Maldonado, he's battling with Maldonado a moment ago and didn't get past. That's almost ended in tears.
Yeah, got squeezed there. All racing incident stuff, I would say. No contact made, but he had to back out of it.
So Alonso still trying to make some moves here. He's catching up to Webber a little bit.
Is that the Ferrari getting round the outside of Maldonado this time? No, he comes back at him.
So he still didn't quite. This was Alonso getting past Bottas, I think.
Excuse me. Yeah, the replay there. Yep. Vital bit of information I wasn't looking at, Ben.
Yeah, that's this was Alonso and the attack to Bottas, but Bottas was pretty sensible with that.
Yeah, I think it's been a mature opening lap for him, and that's when we saw Hulkenberg missing the chicane. Well, he then had to slot in behind the Force India. I think it actually cost him some time as well.
Bottas still under attack here from Jean-Eric Verne. Bottas holding on to 6th place, but we know the Williams has been struggling in the dry. Raikkonen, you just saw slipping and sliding a little bit. He's in 10th, tucked in behind the Toro Rosso of Daniel Ricciardo. And Lotus will want to make some progress. Verne goes round the outside of Bottas and takes the place. Does he? Bottas trying to hold him off, but Sutil in the Force India's 100th Grand Prix event is going to be able to gain a place as well. Remember, Williams are desperate for points. Oh, Sutil spins right in front of the rest of the pack, and they have to take to the grass a complete 360, and he rejoins.
Well, he ran it wheel to wheel, but hats off to Bottas. He didn't give up the position. There was no contact made. And in the end, Sutil, well, avoiding that contact, just spun and lost the back end. And it's cost him a little bit of time, of course, but, well, again, racing incident.
So Bottas survives that for the moment, but he's still dropped down to 7th place with Jean-Eric Verne having got past. Sutil has dropped down to 13th position as a result of that spin, and that's really cost Force India dear. They were looking for points from him, there's no doubt about it, and it's promoted the others up there a little bit now. Ricciardo.
Oh, and there's contact. It hit the back of the Force India. That's allowed the McLaren through.
Oh.
So, well, that will have affected the front wing. You can see bits of carbon flying.
So I think that was with Maldonado. We'll take another look at that in a minute. And meanwhile, Raikkonen still trying to hunt down. Looking in the background, Button just moving out of position. Di Resta is behind, still in the back of that group behind Sutil. So Sutil still at the front of that group in 13th place as they come through the chicane. But things have not gone according to plan for him. And Button is now trying to get past the Force India. Up front, it's still Sebastian Vettel who leads this race by 4.3 seconds. He's opening up the gap. Now, let's see if we can spot what happened here, David.
Well, this is Maldonado in the Williams. You can see he just brakes a bit too late, makes contact with the rear of Sutil's Force India. That allows Button to nip through on the inside. Here we're going to see the slow-mo of that. Locks up, and then whack, take that. And unfortunately, that will affect the performance of his front wing, unquestionably. And has it damaged anything on the back of that Force India?
Yeah, dear, oh dear. So Maldonado getting into trouble. Replay of the Sutil spin.
Yeah, I think that was just a great bit of driving, actually, from both drivers. You know, hats off to Sutil for having a go. And all credit to Bottas for not giving up the position too easily. This is his short front opportunity to show people, you know, he's got the speed and he's got the racing ability. So let's just watch it from on board. I don't believe there's any contact here. You see Sutil's marginally behind. Never at any point is he in front. They turn in, he leaves some space, Bottas. And in the end, Adrian Sutil, you've got to say, is a good comeback from his year away from racing. Avoiding the contact, has a spin, loses some places, but no damage to that car.
So some changes already as Raikkonen now beginning to attack
over
once
here,
more.
Look at this, we've got the Ferrari down the inside.
Massing getting past Perez, so that is a place gain. He's up to 11th place as a result of that. And Raikkonen still all over the back of the Toro Rosso there of Daniel Ricciardo, desperately trying to move up the order a bit further in the top 10. We've still got yellows in sector 11, so we'll keep an eye out for that. But there's no doubt, yeah, it's now just a little bit of a slippery surface there we're seeing. Being cleared of the yellow flag. Ricciardo's car, those tyres are marking up a little bit, and he is starting to slide around quite a lot.
Well, the circuit will be quite green. We've had so much rain over the weekend. We haven't had the opportunity to really penetrate the rubber down into the tarmac.
Okay, Paul, so to manually use the RS, we need to override it, and that is default 7.6 accept, if you haven't already done that. Default 7.6 accept.
So, Paul...
Paul's obviously got an issue with his DRS, and then the team are telling him how to reset the system and various formats that the teams can go through. Well, their reset is obviously 76 confirm, and that just basically reboots your computer effectively whilst you're moving along.
Let's get a little update from Tom Clarkson in the pits. Tom.
Yeah, Ben, another driver having a few problems. It's Max Chilton. He's reporting that his brakes aren't working. And I've just been looking down the pit lane at the Williams boys. After that incident with Maldonado, they actually came out. They had a new set of super softs ready for him. They had a new front wing sat there ready. And then they all went back in. So clearly, he thinks he's not losing any time.
Well, Van der Gaard's just come into the pits. That's interesting. I wonder if he's had a problem. He was going quite well, but he's just been into the pit lane. Few people are complaining about braking problems. Interesting, Kimi has been saying what's going on with the brakes to his team, and they've been explaining it's the same problem you had as Friday. Go as far forward on the brake balance as you can, so it's a brake temperature difference front to rear, presumably, that the team are picking up and trying to instruct Kimi what to do about it.
Well, one of the reasons they get difficulty in balancing brake temps is the fact that they've got KERS harvesting. So through the braking phase, then that's where you get the regeneration of that unused energy in the braking phase goes into charging the batteries, and that's why they're playing around so much with brake balance.
There's the leader going through. There's Hamilton in second place. The gap's up to 5.1 seconds now. Rosberg is still in third. Webber is fourth. Alonso in fifth place in the Ferrari. Then in sixth place on his own now, Jean-Eric Vergne in the Toro Rosso. There is Bottas, and he's actually got a bit of ground. Oh, did you see Raikkonen? A complete four-wheel drift out of the final turn there, the famous smaller champions, and Massa's on the charge again. Now he gets past Hulkenberg. So Massa has got in front of Hulkenberg. He's in 10th place. Hulkenberg's in 11th. Perez is 12th. Button is still part of that group in 13th place.
You can see the graining on the rear tyres, as we've already had Suttel in the pits. Now, is that to check damage? Did he have a puncture from that contact with Maldonado? But it looks to me that the way Massa's driving, he's pushing hard despite that little bit of graining. That would suggest that they're going to be aiming for at least 2 stops this afternoon. Yeah,
5.3 second stop for Suttel, so they obviously did more than just change tyres, I would think, in that stop. Kimi Raikkonen now has got Felipe Massa. Massa is flying in this race, and Raikkonen stuck behind Ricciardo, and we know that he's been reporting some sort of brake problem. Massa is the one on the move here.
Massive visible graining on the rear tyres of that Lotus car. Let's just have a closer look as we go down into the hairpin. And presumably he's going to be a sitting duck when it comes to the DRS zone. This is a replay of Sebastian Vettel kissing the wall.
Goodness, that is the race leader touching the wall, and he does not need to be doing that at the moment. He's got a 5.5 second lead. He does. It does. Oh, we got Massa trying to get past Raikkonen. There was a lock-up, but he doesn't quite get through there. Raikkonen just
He'll
about
have
holds
DRS
on.
again here, Ben. No, but Raikkonen's got DRS as well.
Side by side, Ferrari versus Lotus down towards turn 1. Massa on the outside. Raikkonen just fends him off, but goes deep into the corner. But there's no space for Massa to take advantage, and this is all giving Ricciardo, for the moment, just a little bit of breathing space.
Well, I may have regretted saying Monaco is a wee bit rubbish at times. This is absolutely brilliant stuff. They're all racing the wheels off these cars. I don't see any sign that these drivers have got anything in reserve.
This is good stuff. Ricciardo now coming under threat again from Raikkonen, who closes up the gap. Remember, though, it's Vettel who leads. Easy to crash out of the lead. Alonso has done that in the past here, has hit the wall when he's been leading the race, so we've seen other champions do it, and he came very close. And that wasn't even the famous wall of champions. That's one of the other walls around this track. Let's listen.
So, Adrian, you've got some damage to the rear wing,
I wonder if that was before or after the stop. I presume that they're picking it up. There was, when he got hit, there was damage done. Let's just see here in the background.
Oh, that's where he almost hit the back of Perez, and then he's come into the pits. So I'm not sure whether that was a mistimed entry or whether he was always meaning to come in. It's one of the difficulties here that you start to brake for the last chicane. If you're going into the pit lane, there you see it there. You don't have to brake until much later. So if you're following another car, then you get this massive concertina effect.
Oh, look at this, Raikkonen and Massa. Raikkonen moves to the outside of Daniel Ricciardo. Massa's going to try and follow him through, but doesn't quite do it. And Raikkonen finally gets past Ricciardo and moves up into 8th place. We've got some other guys coming into the pits as well. Charles Pic has just been into the pits, but that was a good move. He needed to do that. Now, see whether the Lotus can clean those tyres up a bit. Now it's in clear air, and look at the kind of pace that Kimi Raikkonen can do.
He locked up there, Ben.
Yeah.
He's struggling a bit. You said already he's having issues with the brakes, but great stuff. This is wheel-to-wheel action.
Massa's the next one that's putting Ricciardo under pressure, the young Australian. Bottas is still up ahead of these guys. Remember, he's running in 7th place, but that's the next car they'll all be chasing.
And you are on plan A, and it's target +2 at the moment, target +2.
Massa down the outside, but Ricciardo can defend, but he runs wide. He runs wide. That's going to give Hulkenberg a chance to get in on the act as well. Massa just holding in there, and now the DRS will be in operation, and he may well be able to make the overtake here as they head down towards the chicane. Ricciardo, in fact, gives him the space on this occasion, and Massa's down. Oh no, look at, oh, he's going in.
He's going to the pits. That's what I was explaining about that entry to the pit lane. You don't have to brake like you do for last chicane. And we've also seen one of the, that's Hulkenberg has gone in as well from Sauber. So very early first round of stops here from the cars. Interesting to see that a Ferrari with the DRS wide open was only pretty much nip and tuck in terms of straight line speed, with the Toro Rosso with the DRS closed. Toro Rosso tend to set their car up for a very high top speed with the DRS closed, so two contrasting styles and setup.
Yeah, Mark Webber, meanwhile, has got Alonso closing up on him, just 0.3 of a second behind, so they are running 4th and 5th at this stage. Vettel is still our race leader. It is quite early for pit stops. May be able to get through on a 2-stop from here, but maybe some are looking at a 3-stop. There isn't a huge difference in time between doing a 2-stop and a 3-stop. We're seeing people, as you see, coming in from this stage. Lovely shot through the wall of champions there as Webber has come in. Yeah, Webber came into the pits there. That's why he suddenly vanished from shot with Alonso. So Mark Webber making a relatively early stop here, lap 14, but should still be able to make this a 2-stop race from there.
Well, he should, but that, I think, is the consequence of the track being quite green. 3 stops is actually quicker on paper than a 2-stop race, but of course you then have to overtake a 2-stopper if he's out on track. And that shouldn't be so much of a problem on a circuit like this. 2 DRS zones down into the last chicane and across the start-finish straight. You see a McLaren has just come in as well. That's Perez.
Meanwhile, Grosjean, just saw him in the background, has been making up some ground. He's now up into 12th. Okay, some have been making pit stops. Perez is in the McLaren. He's gone on to the medium compound tyre, as has Mark Webber, by the way. So they've both gone on to the harder of the 2 compounds that are available this weekend. The super soft, most people choosing to start that. Remember, though, that Paul Di Resta started this race on that harder compound tyre, and of course he's still out there. He's now moved up to 10th place. Race leader Sebastian Vettel is in control by 7.5 seconds here at the moment. So another quick lap from him, a 1 minute 20.0, and we wait to see whether Hamilton follows him down the straight.
Yeah, no, Hamilton looks like he's in. It's Rosberg, excuse me. Rosberg's pitting.
So Rosberg in on lap 15 now, and Hamilton stays out there for an extra lap, hoping to get that wear out of these tyres. Now he's changing tactics to the others. He's gone on to another set of these super soft tyres. So that's very interesting, a 2-stop race likely, and his second stint is going to be on the super softs, and then presumably, well, he'll have to put the mediums on at some point. And as he rejoins the circuit, let's just see, he's come back out in 4th. He's still ahead of Mark Webber. There's Webber going through. Into the pits is the Williams of Bottas now. So can he still maintain some performance? He goes on to the medium compound tyres as well. Bottas and Williams desperate for points here today. Gets off the speed limiter, heads down towards the pit lane exit. Stewards already investigating the collision between cars 15 and 16, and Bottas rejoins, and well, he comes back out ahead of Sutil, I think. So he's dropped him out of the top 10 for the moment. Tom, what have you got for us?
Ben, I was just going to say I was surprised to see Bottas coming in quite so early, because he's carrying a little bit more downforce.
Okay, Lewis, we want 3 to 4 laps at this pace.
I'm pushing.
I was just going to say, I was expecting him to go out, stay out a little bit longer, because Bottas is carrying a little bit more downforce than the cars around him, and I thought that would have protected his tyres a little bit more. But as David was saying earlier, abrasive the track surface is today.
Yeah, well, of course, it hasn't had much running on it. Mark Webber there behind Nico Rosberg, so this is now the battle for 4th position. Rosberg running pretty well, but Webber just did a 1:19.6, his personal best lap in this race so far. Interestingly, Vettel set the fastest lap so far in this race on lap 4. But Webber a 1:19.6 and definitely keeping the pressure on Rosberg.
Yeah, making use of those fresh tyres. You're going to get a drive-through penalty for Maldonado. Well, no big surprise. Whacked the back of Sutil down at the hairpin.
So Maldonado not having a much better day, but Bottas, of course, in the other Williams, hoping for better things. He has dropped down to 13th place now. Webber closes up to the back of Nico Rosberg.
Contrasting tyres, of course. Webber on the prime and Rosberg on the option.
That's right.
We see Vettel has just come into the pits now.
So our race leader is in, as we continue to just see Webber on the attack here. Not losing, he does lose some time there at the hairpin. On board then with Sebastian Vettel as he comes in from the race lead. Lap number 17 ticks by as he is the race leader. He goes on to the medium compound tyre and sets off once again. Alonso is also into the pits. So where's he going to be coming back out onto the circuit? We'll take a little look at this. Vettel, nice clear air for him. And Alonso, now, where's he going to be versus the likes of Webber? He's still going to be behind Webber.
Yeah, Webber and Rosberg have gone through. You can see them just at the entry of turn 2 there. So clean air again for Alonso, but clear target ahead for him. What he's got to do, try and close that gap.
Lewis doing a great job. Nico 4/10 slower last lap. He's currently holding up Webber.
Yes, holding up Webber he is. And Alonso out on the medium compound tyre, the same kind of tyre that Mark Webber's on, but a different kind of tyre to that Rosberg is on here. So Rosberg, different strategy on the Mercedes of Rosberg, and he's not able to quite run the same pace at the moment as those guys behind him, which is interesting. Is this all a bit of a plan from Mercedes? Are they trying to help Lewis Hamilton with Rosberg? Difficult to work it out exactly, but Webber very close once again as they come down towards the hairpin. All about traction off that corner, of course, and trying to be in that DRS zone. The gap probably not close enough for Mark Webber as they come past the rowing lake on the left-hand side of the shot.
It looks like Mark's struggling for traction off of turn 10.
So rear casing temperatures in danger zone. Rear casing in danger zone at the moment.
Oh, Rosberg's going to have to be careful. Rear temperatures, so the rear tyre's getting too hot, basically.
Yeah, you've got to say, I know we're in North America, but it does sound a bit Hollywood, doesn't it? Danger zone.
Is there a little meter on there into the red? Yeah,
that's it.
And well, at the moment it's still holding into third place. Hamilton is now the race leader because, of course, Vettel has been into the pits. Now we're waiting for Massa because we've already seen Alonso into the pit lane. All the while, Di Resta's gradually moving up the order because he's not made a pit stop as yet. And back out on the super soft. So the softer tyre chosen by Massa, different to Alonso's choice.
It looks like he'll come out nip and tuck with Perez in the McLaren. And he gets out in front of him. So maintains that position.
Yep, so Massa comes back out in 14th position. Perez is currently 15th. We've got guys up there who haven't stopped yet, though. Lewis Hamilton hasn't stopped. Kimi Raikkonen is one to watch who hasn't yet stopped. And, of course, we know
the target is 25 more laps on this set. 25.
And that's on the medium compound from Williams, telling us that they've got 25 more laps to do. He's done a couple of laps already on those. So just under the 30-lap mark from the medium compound tyre is what they're hoping to get. But Webber just can't...
Yeah, trying to cool the car, cool the brakes, keeping out of the slipstream of that car in front. So either getting a message that his brake temps are too high or engine cooling, more likely to be a brake issue.
Hamilton still out in front, the gap to Vettel only 6.1 seconds though, and Vettel has already made a pit stop, and it might be a quick pit stop here, but he's still going to lose some 15 seconds, Hamilton, but it would still bring him out in front of Rosberg and Webber. So when Hamilton comes back out, he would still be in second position if they stay as they are right now. Just looking at the comparison lap times, Vettel really beginning to fly now.
Look at Webber trying everything to stay out of the slipstream of the car in front. So that could be a number of cooling issues going on there. So obviously wanting to get a move on so he doesn't end up, well, this will be for Hamilton, of course. We've got the boys coming out into the pit lane. Hamilton arriving down on the entry to the last chicane, and he goes straight in.
Okay, Lewis, so we're going to the other tyre. We're going to the other tyre. So box, 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 pit confirm.
And this is the different tyre to the one that Rosberg's on, so it is definitely a split strategy here between Rosberg and Hamilton.
Front wing adjustment as well.
20 laps completed though, and that's, you know, you're on the verge of a one-stop. I don't think that the Mercedes would be looking to do a one-stop with Lewis Hamilton, but, you know, he's on the verge of a one-stop with that length of stint that he's just done. Tom, what have you got for us?
The Mercedes engineers think that Lewis's tyre wear around this racetrack is slightly better than Nico's. So that's the information they got after the long runs during FP2 on Friday. But just a further thought, we haven't had a safety car yet this afternoon, in the same way that we didn't have a safety car here last year. And the last time we had 2 years in a row without safety cars in Montreal was 2003, 2004. So
Massa, just sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Massa's making a move on Gutierrez here, and that's for 12th place. He's already got past Bottas. So Massa still managing to pick off the places. He's done probably more overtaking than anybody else so far here today, but everyone a little out of sequence. Vettel is currently our race leader. Hamilton has re-emerged in second place. Rosberg is third. Webber is fourth. Alonso is in fifth place. And then you've got Raikkonen, who's come up to sixth, but Raikkonen has yet to stop. The Lotus may well be looking to go for one stop. I think it's less likely for Mercedes because they do tend to be harder on their tyres. There's Rosberg versus Webber.
Yeah, Webber continuing to take that slightly offline approach to getting clean air. The downside, of course, as a driver, is you know you're running over a track which, well, isn't used as much, but a little bit dust and dirt there, which you'll get on your tyres. So his race being spoiled slightly this afternoon by Rosberg, but that's the name of the game.
Well, I wonder if Raikkonen can get another 4 or 5 more laps out of his tyres. That's really what he's going to be looking for now. If he can do that, he can well get through this race on one stop. You're on board with Valtteri Bottas here, trying to get past Gutierrez, moves to the outside. He's got DRS glance in the mirror from the helmet camera, and he is through.
Well, classic DRS pass out of the last chicane. You see Perez, he's got to have Gutierrez. There'll be a bit of a Mexico on Mexico, and is he going to do it into turn one?
Side by side then, Perez round the outside of Gutierrez, who gives him space. Good clean racing from the two Mexicans, and Perez does make the move stick, so he moves into 14th place, and that was sensible from the youngster, just 21 years old, Esteban Gutierrez. Been in a few little incidents this year, not too much. He's been a good finisher apart from that incident when he crashed into the back of Adrian Sutil in China, which of course he got penalised at the next race for. Just interesting, Kimi is definitely being urged to go as long as possible on this set of tyres. The radio confirming that, and he's still out there at the moment. If he can just get a few more laps out of it. Meanwhile, Button says his tyres have gone through the graining phase, and so the team is saying, good, well, carry on in that sense then, David, because obviously once you get through it, the grip comes back.
Yes, indeed. Raikkonen last time around, though, 21.1, which is a full, 2 seconds slower than our race leader Vettel. So hanging in there to try and do this one stop this afternoon, but losing lots of time.
Massa on Sutil, here we go, the Ferrari down the inside, as you know, not quite on the Force India. But Massa still charging along here, and he's still got DRS, of course, on this next straight. It's a double DRS zone. Moves to the outside. It's a tough place to overtake. Round the outside, Sutil doesn't want to give up, and he stays in front. And again, they just about gave each other racing room to work with.
Well, Sutil was as aggressive as I think you'd want to have from someone else that you're racing wheel to wheel with. Massa very sensibly lifting out of it, tried to run it around the outside, realised that Sutil was carrying enough speed to justify letting the car roll into turn two. Well, that'll mark his card for the next time around. Massa clearly much faster than the Force India at this phase of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Massa's been flying, but he's still not in the top 10.
Mix one, Kimi, mix one. Fuel consumption is higher than expected.
Oh,
Do what you can to save fuel without losing performance.
That is a nightmare to hear that information. Mix one, that'll affect horsepower as they have to go into a slightly fuel-saving mode.
And he's losing a place to Verne as a result of it. Jean-Eric Verne goes past the Lotus.
And he's in. He's given up on that set of tyres.
Wow. So I wonder if he's done enough on that to be able to make this through with just one stop. He will, if he's trying for a one stop, then he'll go on to the medium, the white wall tyre, but that still doesn't mean necessarily he can get all the way to the end on those tyres. There's a delay on the right rear.
It looks like the jack dropped. Looked like the man was lying on the ground, actually, so it looks like it had dropped off the jack and they had to lift the car again and have another punt at it. So, well, not going perfectly at the moment.
Massa on the attack. He's got it. No, not quite. Doesn't get down the inside. Tom, I think you saw that pit stop.
Ben, I saw it from a distance, but you're absolutely right. Came off the jack, they had to put it back up, and the guy putting the wheel on the right rear, very dejected. Last man back into the garage.
Take a look. We've got a replay here, David.
Yeah, let's watch the rear jack. See, he hadn't managed to get it seated, so he had to go back under and have another lift at it. And look, he goes down and then pulls the quick release. So, well, they practice these procedures over and over, but occasionally, of course, you add the human element and you will get human error.
So, Gary, we've been looking at the first round of pit stops. Kimi Raikkonen didn't perhaps get quite as far as Lotus would have liked. Do you think they're going to try and make it through on just the one stop with his car?
Well, you know, he did lap 22 there, he came, and I would have liked to have seen him to get to lap 28, maybe even 30, but it wasn't going to happen. He was losing too much time in reality. 48 laps on the medium tyre, it's going to be adventurous, I have to say. So I think they just left it too long before making that decision.
And do you see anybody doing, or just seeing Massa here making a move, another move here from Massa on Button this time? So round the outside, and yes, he gets the move completed. Massa's really been pushing hard, hasn't he? The Ferrari working well for him today.
Well, yeah, Button's one of the cars still out there on the super soft tyres from the start, so he's now, what is it, lap 23? He's done 23 laps now. He's obviously trying to do a one-stop race, but, you know, they're losing too much lap time. A pit stop here is very quick. You lose about 17 seconds overall. So you've got to look at that and weigh it up against the lap time you're losing. And for me, Raikkonen was losing too much time. Button's now losing too much time as well.
Well, we've got Grosjean still making his progress from the back of the field. He hasn't made a pit stop. He's 8th. And De Resta is 7th now, having not pitted as well. So what do you reckon from those guys? Are we going to see something from them at the end of the race?
Well, De Resta's only, in my book, the only sensible one at the moment. He doesn't always be like that. But, you know, he started on the medium tyre. So he's got the opportunity to take that tyre at a reasonably competitive pace as far as possible. So his ground that he's running now in the lap time he's doing, if he can stretch that to lap 40, 41 or something like that, then he can definitely fall into that one-stop race, and I think he can.
Oh, just to interrupt you, Massa having another attempt to get past, another place to gain, but it doesn't quite work on Adrian Sutil, and Sutil just fended him off. Thank you very much, Gary, but it's all pretty exciting out here on track at the moment as Massa really trying to work his way up into the top 10. He's got into 10th place now. How much further can he go? His teammate Alonso, by the way, still running in 5th place, 1.3 seconds behind Webber. It's all a little bit static up at the top end because Sebastian Vettel has got a 13.1 second advantage here. Then you've got 5 seconds back from Hamilton, who's 2nd, to Rosberg, who's 3rd, and then Webber holding on to 4th, Alonso in 5th, Jean-Eric Verne 6th.
3 cars in front at least are on 2 stops.
So it sort of confirms that Raikkonen, they are aiming for a one-stop. Question is whether the car will allow them to do it. But Raikkonen is all the way down in 14th place now.
I think that must be an old radio message. I don't see how they can say 3 cars only, at least. There's a whole bunch of them that have been in the early teens for their pit stops. So I can't honestly believe they would think they're going to try anything other than at least 2 stops this afternoon.
Here comes Massa in the DRS zone once again, the flap opening on the rear wing as he heads down towards the final chicane. Let's just see whether, no, not enough straight line speed there. De Resta is in the other Force India, has one of the highest top speeds in the race so far. It's actually Hulkenberg fastest in the speed traps, but the Force Indias are fast in the speed trap. Oh, he just gives them only a car's width there. Wow. I really thought they were going to make contact.
Well, not just that, I thought we were going to see Massa touching the grass there. Sutil, well, defending well, right on the limit of what is giving your man a bit of space, but, well, this is Grand Prix racing, and it should be hard but fair.
Here comes Webber. He's got to run on Rosberg. Can he make this one stick? He's been there for a little while.
He's in the limiter, though. DRS open, but he just doesn't nearly has contact as he gets caught out by just how well the Mercedes was able to decelerate, and he's going to be a little bit under pressure from Alonso.
Yeah,
let's
Alonso.
Look out. Well, Alonso, as he disappears from our shot, Alonso was really honing in on the back of that Red Bull.
Yeah, he was a second behind, but that really closed the gap up hugely, and a real opportunity there for Alonso as things didn't work out for Webber when he went on the attack. Plenty of stars here enjoying the show of Formula One in Montreal, but at the moment it's Vettel who leads. You can see how close Alonso is now to the back of Webber, and this is a 3-way fight now for 3rd position with Vettel and Hamilton quite some way up the road.
Well, that mistake cost Webber a second.
Button in front looks to be struggling on these tyres.
Bottas is down in 12th place. Button, who has not stopped yet, is in 11th, so he would be struggling on the tyres, I'm sure. And Bottas being encouraged. In fact, Bottas has got past Button now. Bottas is up into 11th. Button is down to 12th position, and Button's trying to go as far as possible on these super soft tyres to make sure that they can make it a one-stop race. That's what they seem to be doing. Some good battles further back down the field. In the battle of the young teams, by the way, Bianchi leads that group. He is in 18th place. Maldonado, in fact, he's just been passed by Maldonado, so that pushes Bianchi down to 19th. He's ahead of Chilton, Peak and Van der Gaard.
Well, Jenson Button, not having stopped yet this afternoon, is 3.5 seconds a lap slower than our race leader. He's not in the battle for the lead of this Grand Prix, of course, but it just puts into perspective how much time you lose.
Okay, Jensen, box this lap, box this lap.
I should think that'll be a relief to him to hear that he's coming in for tyres at this point, because, as you say, it's been a real struggle. 1:22.1 his last lap, whereas the leader's doing 1:18.5, so 3.5 seconds, as you say.
Well, that's going to bring him out behind Ricciardo at least, maybe even Gutierrez.
Long way to go in this race as yet, but Jenson Button has been holding on. He's just coming into the pits now, I can see from our commentary position. But out in front of this race, it's still Sebastian Vettel leading by 15 seconds from Lewis Hamilton. Here comes Jenson Button then, in for his pit stop. Let's watch this. Oh, that was lovely. That's how it should be, and it wasn't for Kimi Räikkönen when we watched earlier. But the McLaren crew getting it beautifully right. 20.2 seconds spent in pit lane, a stop time of 2.5. So very impressive once more from them. Webber still looking at away past Rosberg. Alonso tucked in behind this time, but just not able to do it. And as ever, the Red Bull's not that fast in a straight line. They were way down at the bottom of the speed trap lists, as we usually expect. And that's certainly giving Alonso a chance here to close right up to the back of the Red Bull.
Bit of traffic ahead, quite tricky for the Marussia to get out of the way while he lifts out of the throttle, allowing all three cars to pass before the first chicane. Alonso's in that hunting zone, isn't he? Ready to pounce.
Yeah, he can be dangerous when he's in that kind of position. He needs points, of course. He's trying to close on both Kimi Räikkönen, well, Räikkönen's behind him, but he's also trying to close the gap to Vettel, the championship leader. And Vettel is leading this race quite comfortably at this stage, so he really wants to get past the other Red Bull. Mind you, from Red Bull's point of view, the last thing they want to see is Webber allowing that Ferrari through.
I think we upgrade quite to very comfortably. It's 15.7 seconds ahead of Hamilton. A lot can happen, of course, in the remainder of this Grand Prix, but that's quite impressive for the time we've been running.
A pit stop ahead on this track, isn't it? 15 seconds. So he's already a pit stop ahead, and we're not even at half distance yet.
Paul, data really does look very healthy for these tyres, so push. It's an excellent job so far. Quality drive, keep going.
Oh, you can see how close Webber was to Rosberg.
I think Mark Webber will be getting hot under the collar. Rosberg defending well, but that forced Webber to try and have a look again round the outside. And we see some dust being picked up on the tyres. Rosberg gets wide through one. Mark Webber, will he try and cut back? Well, Rosberg may be wise to it. He can release his DRS, of course, his KERS, defensively as he runs up into the first chicane. It can only be a matter of time before something gives in this battle. Three quality drivers.
Alonso just trying to pick up the pieces here if he can. Rosberg's sort of regained his momentum. Di Resta, as we heard on the radio just then, being told everything's looking good on the tyres. Di Resta's up to 7th, by the way, now as we continue with this tussle up towards the top end of the circuit, and then the hairpin comes next. So can Mark Webber line himself up and get into position to overtake on the DRS here?
Well, Mark spent his KERS with nothing left. Look at Alonso. Alonso's got a whole bunch of KERS he can then release now. Watch it, there's the icon. That'll allow him to get into the slipstream of Mark Webber, who'll have the slipstream from Rosberg. But look out for Alonso.
Three-way fight then for third place. Rosberg under pressure from Webber and Alonso. Webber finally gets in front of the Mercedes. Alonso isn't able to do likewise. And although Rosberg defended, he couldn't keep that Red Bull back any longer. And at last, Webber's
Alonso
third.
Comes.
Yeah, so he's used the second DRS zone to get past there. And I think he's going to hold on to that. So we've got a change. Rosberg has lost 2 places there, and he is now down into 5th position as Webber into 3rd and Alonso into 4th. So I don't think there's much threat to Vettel up front, but how quickly can they try and close the gap to Hamilton? It's a big gap to Hamilton, some 10 seconds.
Well, this is great stuff. Mark Webber knew he had to get it done. He had glanced in his mirror to see where Alonso was. Got a massive slipstream on the Rosberg, and then managed to keep it around the outside into the last chicane. And then Alonso, well, ever the predator, he pounced, got his DRS, and Rosberg, well, almost looks like he just, after so many laps of defending, it's almost like he said, okay, give me a break.
So Rosberg, nothing he could do in the end there. He's done 16 laps on those super soft tyres, which is about the limit of what we saw. I'm sure he'll be heading in for a pit stop very, very soon now, Rosberg. But if they were trying to get Rosberg to sort of defend for Hamilton, it certainly has worked well, because Hamilton has been able to open up quite a gap over these guys, and Webber and Alonso have got some catching up to do.
Yeah, well, remembering back, Rosberg was told, of course, he was getting critical on the tyres, and we've got Rosberg in the pits now.
Yeah, so he's gone to the limit of that set of tyres. He'll presumably go for a set of the medium compound, the white wall tyres now, and get a longer stint here. So it's lap 31. Still quite a long way to go in this race. I wonder whether he can hope to get that many laps to the end of this, possibly, if the Mercedes is looking after its tyres. Good stop by the Mercedes crew, and he comes back out and rejoins the fray once more. Comes back out in 5th place, in fact, so no difference to where he went in.
Right, it's very early for that second stop.
Yep, and he's gone super soft and super soft again. So it's a question now of how far the medium tyre, limit on the medium tyre, thought to be around 35 laps. Well, he's going to have to get more than that if he's going to get to the end. It's possible they may need an extra stop before the end of this race. We'll keep an eye on that. But up front, it is Sebastian Vettel. There he is, totally in control of this race. A huge lead he has of 17.6 seconds.
Yeah. He's well down the road. Just looking at Paul di Resta in 7th place. He's doing respectable lap times, not having stopped so far this afternoon. He's only 3 seconds behind Jean-Eric Vergne, who has stopped in that Toro Rosso. So Paul looking like he may be able to recover some points this afternoon.
The interesting aspect now is how fast can Webber go? Well, he's just gone fastest of everybody, a 1:18.3. Now, Hamilton's still lapping reasonably quickly. Hamilton did a 1:18.6, so Webber gained 0.3 of a second on that lap.
And his tyres are looking clean. It's next time we get a camera shot of his car and you contrast it to where he was in the super softs, you can actually see on the prime tyre across the surface, no real visible signs of graining. There's a little bit of something flapping on the front right of his wing. That could be a bit of helicopter tape.
Right, you are going to the end of the race on this set. 39 laps to go. You need to look after the tyres to get 39 laps out of it.
So now we know Bottas versus Perez there as they were coming across the line. So Bottas is in 11th place, but they're still side by side. Perez trying to go around the outside, he's done it. So Perez gets the place, and tucked in behind them as well is Raikkonen. There is Kimi Raikkonen, and we think that he's going to the end of the race on this set of tyres as well. He's going to run down the inside of the Williams. The Finn, the experienced Finn versus the rookie Finn, side by side. Bottas holds him off, just like he did with Sutil, but Raikkonen didn't spin the car. Wow, you don't often see cars go side by side through there. They just about managed. Look, race leader is behind them. That is Sebastian Vettel trying to get past them.
Well, normally there would be clearly some wave blue flags here. I'm not seeing any right now as they try and battle. Vettel is out front, so these guys, well, wave blue flags, we're getting a message now. I just can't see any out there. And Raikkonen trying to get himself into position.
My DRS won't work in both zones.
Oh, DRS problems for Hamilton, that's interesting. Raikkonen getting out of the way of Vettel here, gives him the space and allows the race leader through. Of course, Bottas will have to do likewise. Bottas has got a bit of help with DRS from the Caterham up ahead of him as well, so that's good news. That's Van der Garde he's passing. Van der Garde, who went well in the early stage of this race, but then lost time and is actually into the pits now. And Vettel now will try and get past Bottas. Should be able to do that easily here down the start-finish straight, and Raikkonen will have to work a little harder to get past the Williams.
Look how much time that cost Vettel. 18.7 last time around, 21.4 on that lap.
So I wonder if Raikkonen will get into any trouble for that, whether he should have moved over earlier because he was involved in a battle with Bottas. But blue flags mean they have to get out of the way of the race leaders.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have thought he'd be lapped at this stage, would he? Of course, both of them have made one pit stop in this race, and Vettel has managed to lap his nearest rival in the championship, Kimi Raikkonen. So that's, it's a big blow to Raikkonen, to the team, but it's possible that Vettel might be making one more stop than Kimi in this race, so that might settle things back onto the same lap again.
Unless he has an absolutely terrible pit stop, it's not going to cost him a lap. So
No,
I think that's
right.
a bit of a humbling experience right there for Raikkonen as he works his way into position again with Bottas. You can see he's getting a little bit of pressure now from Hulkenberg in the Sauber.
Okay, Fernando, safety car window is open. zero is open. Hamilton è 11 secondi davanti a noi, sta spingendo e gli guadagniamo 3 decimi al giro.
Mix of Italian and English. Safety car window is open. Basically means if the safety car does get deployed now, it would be a good time to make a pit stop. They are into the sort of tyre window for that, and then just giving gaps by the looks of things. So Webber and Alonso, David, they're busily trying to catch up to Hamilton. That was a bit of a lock-up, wasn't it, from Bottas? He's going to be under threat here.
He is indeed. Well, Vettel back to 18.6 this next lap around, so several seconds lost. Still 16 seconds lead over Hamilton, though.
Jenson Button, that pit stop that we saw that looked so quick for the McLaren crew, looks as though it's the fastest of the race so far. It was very, very impressive.
That'll be a little bit frustrating for Vettel and Red Bull. They had more than a pit stop in hand prior to getting past Raikkonen and Bottas. They've now got it right on the cusp. If he had an issue now and had to come in, well, Hamilton would be nip and tuck coming out of the pit lane.
Yeah, so that's not ideal for them. Raikkonen still hasn't got past Bottas. They're running 12th and 13th. Vettel, race leader from Hamilton and Webber, and the gap between Hamilton and Webber, well, it's 8.6 seconds, and Webber definitely is closing that gap, and Alonso going with him. Alonso's 2 seconds behind Webber, but I think he's not trying to challenge the Red Bull at the moment because he wants them both to work together effectively to close the gap to Hamilton. Here comes Raikkonen then. Raikkonen on Bottas down the outside. Bottas doesn't give up easily, but this time there's no way that he can defend any further, and Kimi Raikkonen moves up into 12th position.
Well, Bottas has slowly gone backwards this afternoon, but nonetheless it's been a good display of driving. There's one of the Caterhams there having an issue.
Yeah, it's Van der Gaard.
That's coming out of turn 10, the hairpin. Mark Webber. Oh, I had DRS there, so I've got to presume that was maybe from... Oh, and look, a bit of front wing has just fallen off. If I look out of my commentary box, I can see a part of a front wing part on the exit of the last chicane. Is that from the Ferrari?
Let's
What's
just
the
take
contact?
A look at this. Webber.
Okay, so it must be contact from the Red Bull. So the wing part we can see out of our commentary box is part of Webber's front wing.
Maybe just taken the end plate. Might not have done too much damage.
I think it's the upper flap. So see that little upper flap that we can see visible? That's going to take a hit here from the Caterham, and you can see it's then dangling in the air. Well, by the time he gets down to the last chicane, not quite sure what the Caterham was playing at there. He couldn't have looked in his mirrors and thought, yep, I'm racing that Red Bull.
Well, that's given Alonso presumably an opportunity.
A lot of the front wing is missing. So what's that going to do to Webber's afternoon? The whole end plate has fallen off the car at the last chicane.
Dear oh dear, Mark Webber. That's really not good news for him and for the rest of this race. We've gone halfway and he's had the front wing working well, but Alonso now, I'm sure, will sense a chance of getting past the Red Bull. Still seems to be running fairly quickly at the moment.
You can see the flashing yellow. That's to pick up the debris, the carbon pieces that are lying at the last chicane. Let's keep an eye on whether Mark keeps going. He does indeed. Now, what he'd be hoping is that the car was a little bit on the nose, which means that when he's turning in, he's towards oversteer, towards losing the rear of the car, because effectively what he's done is lost front performance, load on that front wing. Now, can it stay together now? It's not supported. Lap time 18 flat. Well, that's a great lap time from Webber, 18.0 as well from Alonso. So he's able to respond. Remember when we had that happen last time, we had Adrian Newey studying photographs of the damage to that front wing from some video footage that he was handed. So,
and they're investigating Van der Gaard for ignoring blue flags, and that incident there we saw with Webber was with the Caterham driver.
Yeah, it was, you know, I was just clumsy, wasn't it, from Van der Gaard?
Yeah. So Sutil has come into the pits now. Meanwhile, these guys have done some mid-20s in terms of laps on this set of tyres. I would have thought that Webber might, well, it depends on their strategy. It might not hurt them quite so much because the next time he stops, they'll be able to put a new front wing on. And Alonso really hasn't been able to take advantage of this at all. They've got traffic between them. It's Esteban Gutierrez, and Webber has just set the fastest first sector of anybody. So for all those hundreds of thousands of pounds of development spent on front wings, he's now going even faster.
Well, clearly it can be offset by having an angry Aussie.
Well, maybe he's got some straight line speed now. I'm just wondering if he's going to appear suddenly at the top of our speed trap figure, but he hasn't. Alonso has now got fastest lap, but I can tell you that Webber was only a tenth of a second slower, and they are really beginning to close the gap on Hamilton now. down to 7.6 seconds. They are definitely chasing down the Mercedes that is holding second position as Vettel continues to lead.
For sure, if Alonso didn't see the debris on the track, his team would have radioed in and said, okay, Mark Webber has damage, now's your chance, start pushing.
Yeah, well, Alonso never gives up, does he? He's always giving it his maximum, and there's an opportunity to get a podium finish here, but to do that, they both need to get up towards where Lewis Hamilton is, and there's still some work to be done. Lead up front for Vettel is still 16.2 seconds. Amazingly, all cars are still running in this race. All 22 cars are running. We're over half distance.
Well, this is brilliant. They've been matching each other in the first and second sector, but crucially, Mark Webber has good drive off the turn 10 hairpin.
So we've got a stop-and-go penalty, 10-second stop-and-go penalty for Guido van der Garde for ignoring blue flags and causing the collision that damaged the front wing of Mark Webber's car. So the Caterham will have to be into the pits, but I don't know, it's done Webber a favour here. He's still going quickly. This is going to be another good lap from him. Let's just see what the lap time is as he crosses the line. It's a 17.8. Alonso does a 17.7, but Hamilton has responded a little bit on that lap and has done an 18.0. So they haven't caught as much that time.
Right, this is what I love to see. You've got a race leader 17.7, Hamilton 18.0, Webber 17.8, Alonso 17.7. 3 different cars, 4 different drivers, and at this phase of the race, unquestionably, they're all pushing to the limit.
It's good stuff. Di Resta, by the way, still hasn't been into the pits, remember, on his medium compound tyres. He's in 7th place. Grosjean is the same, and he's in 8th place. And they are now definitely getting to the point where they're going to be able to make this on a one-stop race on their starting from their medium and then going on to the super soft tyre. So Di Resta and Grosjean really could end up getting something fairly decent out of this race, maybe some points after taking that different strategy choice at the start of the race. Others in the top 10 at the moment, we've got Massa in the top 10, he's running in 9th in the other Ferrari. Perez is just in the top 10. We did hear a radio message that told Perez from his team that look after your tyres, you're going to be ending up racing with your teammate again at the end of the race, so you need to look after your tyres and have something at the end of the race. Button is down in 15th, by the way, at the moment. He's just been promoted to 14th because Ricciardo has come into the pits in the Toro Rosso, and Jean-Eric Vergne is still running very solidly in 6th place in this race, which would be his best ever result if he can hang on to it, but there is a long way to go.
Well, if Mark Webber is running in clean air right now, Fernando Alonso picking up extra lap time from being within the DRS zone. So that's keeping him in there. It's going to suggest to me that Red Bull has underlying a little bit more pace. And to explain that, again, if I haven't explained it very well, Mark Webber doesn't have the benefit right now of reducing that drag from opening the DRS. So Fernando Alonso is picking up a couple of tenths in that last sector. So effectively, he can be running a couple of tenths slower than the Red Bull and then match the lap time because of the gain of reducing drag on the rear wing. The more I keep explaining it, Ben, the more I confuse myself. Can you explain it to the people at home? As Mark Webber runs wide at turn 10, is this Alonso's best chance?
It might be. I'll leave it to you. So let's see whether he closes up. Just a quick note, these tyres that they're on have done some more laps than Hamilton's. Hamilton, and this is a chance for Alonso, no doubt about it. Little look in the mirror, but he's not quite there. But Alonso much closer. Top speed, his current top speed.
Still got DRS here, of course, Ben. Can he do anything on the start-finish straight?
He's heading down towards turn 1. Webber goes defensive to the inside. Alonso goes round the outside, and he makes the move. He's done it. He's got past Mark Webber. These two have huge respect for each other, of course. Great support for Alonso out there in the grandstands. Ferrari always massively supported here in Canada, and he has moved himself up into a podium finishing position here, into 3rd place. But can he catch Hamilton? Hamilton responding all the time here, and the gap is still some 7.8 seconds to Hamilton. Let's take another look.
Well, this is through 13-14, the last chicane. He uses Kerr's DRS open. Mark Webber keeps to the left. Alonso pulls out, and well, in the end, he took it around the outside. He's just relentless, isn't he? You know, it's almost like when you see him in your mirrors, you're just as well lying down straight away because he's going to get you in the end.
Well, Webber's done a few more laps on his tyres than Alonso as well. He's done 28 laps on those tyres, and I think he's just reaching the point where he just can't fight him off anymore. Massa comes into the pits now. So Felipe Massa on his super soft tyres. He did an amazing stint there on the super soft tyres, a long stint. Let's just watch him back out again, and yeah, he's on his way once more, and that'll be his final stop of the day.
Well, Button's just gone past. Let's see where he rejoins.
Oh, look at this. Grosjean getting out of the way of Vettel, the race leader. That's okay. Grosjean being lapped there. He is in 8th place, but Vettel has just set fastest lap at a 1:17.3, and he's just picking his way through the back markers. But amazing that Grosjean should be counted as that, I guess. Still hasn't made a pit stop, though. Grosjean's been out there an awfully long time.
He has indeed. Well, Massa came out just in front of Button, so that puts him in behind Raikkonen. And who else are we waiting to stop this afternoon? De Resta and Grosjean, as you say. De Resta still doing very respectable times. A long way into this Grand Prix.
On board with Sutil, just looking back over the rear wheel, and Massa did some 25 laps on those super softs.
You can see the damage, I think, on that rear wing.
Right.
To me, it looks like it's actually backed off to the left slightly. Could be the camera angle, but remember, he was hit by Maldonado. We heard the radio message saying there was damage to his wing. That's Grosjean finally coming in for his stop.
44 laps he's done on that set of tyres. That's very impressive when the life for some of the other teams has been about 35 laps on the medium compound. But again, the Lotus showing it's good on its tyres. Where is he going to come back out? He drops down to 11th place as he comes back out onto the circuit, does Romain Grosjean. And Vettel still continues to lead this race very, very comfortably. Still looking, of course, for his first ever win in Canada.
No, we just had Alonso up behind Button as he went across the line. Button about to be lapped. And, well, it's impressive pace from the front runners.
It is, but are they going to have to stop again? There's the question. Just getting out of the way as Hamilton goes through. So Kimi Raikkonen just having to get out of the way of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton is some 14 seconds behind Vettel and still lapping very quickly. He's done 24 laps on these tyres. Vettel is definitely due a pit stop. He's done a long old stint on his medium compound tyres, so I would have thought that we'd be seeing Vettel in fairly soon at this stage of the race. And just looking at those comparisons, you can see Alonso's been a little quicker over the last couple of laps than Hamilton, but the gap is still 7.6 seconds.
Yep, Perez in for McLaren.
So there, hopping over the curb goes Lewis Hamilton, trying to hold on to second place at the moment, but 14.2 seconds behind Vettel. And I wonder how far Hamilton can go on these tyres. You remember he did a fairly long first stint, didn't he? I wonder whether Mercedes really can get through on one stop. It would make a race of it at the end of the race if they can. But, well, there's Alonso. He's running in third. Webber still in fourth place. And we're just seeing Perez there as well, going through the shot, but he's a lap down, so he's just come out. He's in 12th place. Gary, Vettel has got this advantage. It keeps hovering around the 14-15 second mark, but he has done a lot of laps on those tyres now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I mean, he put it on lap 15, so it's a good old run. That's 29 laps, 30 laps. So yeah, it's very strange because what seems to happen, if you look closely at Paul Di Resta, you go through this stage where the tyre's got good grip. Then it falls away. You panic, driver-wise you panic, team-wise you probably panic a little bit, and you take reaction to that situation that maybe you should leave it alone. Paul Di Resta's now done, what, 44 laps on a set of medium tyres. He's just done his fastest lap of the race. He's in contention for a very, very strong result here. So, it's one of those things. You shouldn't panic when the tyres are graining. You should try to push a little bit further.
But that means, I mean, Hamilton has done, what, 25 laps or so on this set of tyres that he's on in second place. Do you think that he can go to the end on this set of tyres?
I would think there'll be a lot of people thinking about that, if you know what I mean, because at the end of the day, it is, 25 laps more to go. That would make it 50 total. Nobody's got that far yet. But Paul Di Resta is showing that, it is possible. You might be a little bit vulnerable on those last 5 laps, but it's the gamble you take now against the pit stop. So I would, if I was on the pit wall now, I'd be scratching my head.
Some radio.
Jensen is the car behind now. We are racing him. We are racing Jensen.
Well, that's quite fun, isn't it? The two McLarens are on track again, and Perez versus Button. They are 12th and 13th, but Button is going a lot quicker on his tyres as they are at the moment. Well, Gary, I mean, we've seen Alonso move up. Of course, Webber dropped back a little bit. The Ferrari is looking in reasonably good shape, but whether it can really put the pressure on Hamilton, that's a bit more to ask for, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think it quite can. I think if anything, they're running at the same pace. If you do look at Lewis now, that strategy, could you try and stretch it to a one stop? I'm sure, as I say, they'll be thinking very hard about that. If you look at Rosberg, I don't know why they went with 2 sets of super softs on the first 2 stints, because immediately that boxes you into doing that second stop. So you have no way out of it.
Well, we wondered whether he was almost trying to help Hamilton and keep the other guys behind him. By the way, Vettel is responding. If Red Bull think that Mercedes might be doing that at one stop, Vettel's responding, and although he's done so many laps on these tyres, he is now still setting some very fast sector times.
Any wing here for Webber, no front nose change, so he's obviously happy to keep going. Bit slow on the getaway there, Ben.
Yeah, amazing. Garrett, just a quick...
Is there an issue here down into turn 1? What's going on here between the...
Somebody going very slowly. It's one of the... Oh, it's Hulkenberg.
Has there been contact? Look at the broken front wing on the Caterham there.
That's Van der Garde again. And it was Hulkenberg in the Sauber, so it looks as though there could have been contact. The other Sauber goes through there. Quick word from you, Gary, about the damage on Webber's wing and the fact that they haven't actually changed the front wing. Yeah,
I was just thinking about that. You know, that's about £20,000 with that piece that falls off and it goes quicker. Yeah, a bit confusing back in Milton Keynes, but at the end of the...
Where's that debris going to go? If this ends up on the track, this could be the safety car this afternoon. Let's wait and see if he can keep dragging it.
Van der Garde with the front wing stuck under his car and dragging it all the way around the track. Well, thanks, Gary. We'll keep an eye on everything that's going on here. The Vettel going quickly again. 1 minute 16.9 on that last lap. So he really is flying. He is aware that maybe Mercedes are trying to go through this race on one more stop, and therefore he's trying to open up enough of an advantage to make the pit stop. Look at this. Surely he's going to cause a puncture in a minute. Alonso is in. So Alonso is in from 3rd place. Webber has just been into the pits, so I don't think this will change anything between the Ferrari and the Red Bull. It's all going on in different parts of the circuit at the moment. There is Van der Garde. He has stopped. That's probably the wisest thing to do.
Yeah, but it's not the wisest place to stop, is it? That's exactly where. Is this why it came about? This is the Sauber, and the Caterham, well, he moves over and there's contact, so presumably there was some damage made to the back of the Sauber as well. Well, they're not racing each other, quite frankly. And then you can see that suspension damage in Hulkenberg.
Suspension failure or something. Okay, Nico. Can you come back? I don't think it's safe in the quick sector. Okay, Nico, stop. Remember curse jump.
Well, Van der Garde's having a mare this afternoon. He was a lap down on Hulkenberg when that contact was made. He's parked the car right in the area where, if you remember, with... we see one of the Mercedes in. That's Hamilton has come in. Right,
so Hamilton can't get through on one more stop. So this is going to be really interesting. Where's he going to be with regard to Alonso and Webber? Well, they've made their stops. The gap was around 7 to 8 seconds, so I think it's going to be similar. And now he's going to be able to push to the end and still try and hold on to second. So any thoughts of challenging for the win out the window. Now it's about trying to hold on for second position. And as he comes back out, he's going to come out between the 2 McLarens. His former team, of course, comes right out, but they are a lap down. So he still retains his second place in this race as he tries to put a lap on Sergio Perez. He's already in front of Jenson Button there.
Well, amazingly, Paul di Resta still running round there, not having stopped this afternoon. You'll have to stop at some point.
Yeah, you have to stop at some point, but...
Tyres are good. Okay to push to the end. Tyres are easy. Push till the end.
And everybody having a slightly different race of it here than we've seen on some of the occasions. They are all pushing very, very hard. Hamilton has 9.4 seconds advantage in second over the 3rd place. Pit stop then for Vettel. The race leader is in for Red Bull. So, does this go to plan? Never won this race, but he is in very comfortable shape at the moment. So far ahead, he's been able to make that stop, and he's still going to have a very healthy lead of some 15, 16 seconds or so as he rejoins Vettel out in front with 20 laps to go of the Canadian Grand Prix, in a race that has eluded him in the last few years is definitely going his way. Still needs the reliability from the car, of course, but he has taken total control of this race. What we need to keep an eye on now are the battles for the other podium places. Can Hamilton retain that second place? Well, Alonso's going very quickly at the moment, and the gap down to just under 7 seconds, and Webber, also on his new set of tyres, is lapping in the low 1 minute 17s, so we could still be on for a race for the podium places. Rosberg is 5th, Verne is still in 6th, Di Resta still waiting for him to stop, is in 7th place, but even when he makes his stop, he's still going to be well inside the top 10. Interestingly, his teammate Sutil is in 8th place, Raikkonen is in 9th, and Grosjean is in 10th position. So very different style of race on the tyres. Just seeing a quick look up there from Rosberg. And talking tyres, Tom Clarkson's talking to Pirelli's Paul Hembry.
I am, Ben. Paul di Resta has done 50 laps now on the prime tyre. Why did more drivers not start on the prime?
I think it's probably a few of them asking. I spoke with Paul before, actually, so I knew what they were going to do. And if there's one thing you have to say, Force India this year have often tried that. You know, all through the season they've been trying different tactics, and it's bringing home results.
Okay, and I think we've been certainly commenting on the fact that Mercedes may have been contemplating trying to get Lewis to the end there without making another stop. Do you surprised they brought him in, or were you expecting that?
No, I think we were expecting it. When you saw the first stint cut short by what we thought was five to 8 laps, then it was quite clear to us that it was going to go to a 2-stop race. I mean, Red Bull were thinking of doing a 1-stop before, but we got 20 degrees more tarmac temperature today compared with Friday and Saturday, and that's changed the rules a bit.
And is this a better Grand Prix from your point of view, from Monaco? Everyone's pushing out there. It's very exciting stuff.
It's great. I mean, we always get great races here. We've had, actually, despite all the rain, it was actually fun in the practice sessions, but the qualifying was fantastic. So Canada always throws out interesting races.
Great. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks, Tom. And meanwhile, Alonso and Webber are both closing that gap a little bit to Lewis Hamilton. It's down to 5.7 seconds between Hamilton and Alonso, but Webber himself is the fastest man on circuit. He is now 3.2 seconds behind Alonso. So the Red Bull and the Ferrari are really going for it here as they try and close the gap to Hamilton. Now, Hamilton, I'm sure, is sort of managing the situation, but he won't want them to get too much closer.
Okay, Paul, so basically we're going to leave this call to you. As soon as you feel the tyres are shot.
We didn't get all of that, that's a shame. But we got the gist, Di Resta's gonna get the choice. There've been a few mistakes on strategy in qualifying. They're going to let Paul decide.
Yeah, but we're standing here, we're getting the benefit of no background noise. See, Vettel runs wide on the entry to turn 1, avoids turn 2. He'll rejoin. Well, he rejoins. There's a bit of tarmac there, so, well, small error there from Sebastian Vettel. You see, he committed to turning, lost the back end, corrected, and then found himself off track, tried to keep it off the grass, and then rejoin on the tarmac. But anyway,
it's a rare error from him.
Yeah, and there you go. Marussia has a rare opportunity to overtake a Red Bull. But we just come back to Paul's message. We're hearing it. Oh, here's another one.
Okay, mate, settle down. Bring your tyres back in.
Right, we hear all those messages and it sounds very clear. When you're in the race car, there's so much background noise. You're strapped to a screaming 18,000 RPM race engine. You don't always fully hear the message. So Paul might have thought he was getting a message that he had to go to the shop or something, rather than you make, what would they say, your tyres are shot, or come in when they're shot.
Yeah, that's right. So, well, Di Resta hasn't come in yet. He's still going, not made a pit stop, and we've done 53 laps of this race. So it is amazing the longevity that he's getting out of those tyres. And for Force India, they're looking at getting both cars in the points here today. Their 100th Grand Prix outing. Look at that, a bit of a sliding around for Lewis Hamilton. He is trying quite hard, but the gap is down to 3.9 seconds to Alonso. Alonso still catching, and so is Webber.
And he took 7/10 out of Hamilton that last lap around. So Hamilton has no choice but to push, and he finds himself in a situation where, well, he's got to try, if he wants a podium, to defend against Alonso and Webber, and then he has quite a healthy gap of over 25 seconds to Nico Rosberg. So for Hamilton, it's second place, or he could well find himself in fourth place, excuse me.
Well, we saw this last year with some late changes, didn't we, to the order, with both Grosjean and Perez fighting their way up through the field on different strategies, and both got podium finishes as a result. Both Vettel and Alonso lost out on that occasion. Well, I don't think Vettel's in too much difficulty. He's controlling things up front, and no problem for him. Massa now you're on board with. He's behind Grosjean, but not for much longer, because the Ferrari slots past the Lotus and overtakes to move back into a points scoring position. And next up is Raikkonen. Raikkonen is only another 3 seconds up the road or so. So it's been a tough day for Lotus. Really haven't shown the kind of performance that they would have been hoping for. And of course, in terms of the championship, very damaging for Kimi Raikkonen. Also for Lotus in the Constructors' Championship as well, because Mercedes were only 3 points behind them coming into this race. Mercedes would definitely jump ahead of Lotus if the positions stay as they are right now. So it has not been a good weekend at all. Raikkonen still on target at the moment to match Michael Schumacher's record of 24 consecutive races in the points, but not by a huge amount, so going to have to watch that one towards the end of the race. On board with Di Resta. Is he coming in yet? No.
Not yet. He's having fun.
He's in the groove, isn't he, on these tyres? Got through the difficult phase, and the lap time, how's the lap time looking?
Very good, 18.4. That's only a second off our race leader, Vettel.
Verne is having a quiet race. We haven't seen much of him, but for Jean-Eric Verne, David, this is a key performance. He's in 6th place at the moment. He's made one pit. He's made one pit stop in this race. He's done 39 laps on the current set of tyres, so he's really trying to go a long way. I wonder if that will work for him. But right now, for the young Frenchman, it is working. He is in 6th position rather. All right, in comes Grosjean. So this is, in fact, his 2nd pit stop. So Romain Grosjean in and not able to make it to the end there. And I wonder whether Lotus, trying to make this on a one-stop for both cars, really paying the price here. Massa is going to be trying to close up to Raikkonen now. Let's listen.
OK, Mark, we may catch Hamilton by the end of the race. Still got a chance of catching Hamilton. Keep up the pace, keep pushing.
Now, it's interesting, Hamilton is behind Massa at the moment as he tries to lap Massa, and Alonso's catching. Now, here we go, Hamilton, is he getting past? Yes, he does get past Massa. Of course, Massa has to get out of the way. He's been given the blue flag, but that was a little opportunity for Ferrari to perhaps just hold him up for an extra corner.
Yeah, Massa was very fair there, and he'll be well aware that he's got his teammate behind him. Well, being lapped. Didn't have the best of starting positions, but he's certainly lost a lot of time this afternoon relative to his teammate.
So, Nico, we'd like to pull more of a gap to Verne, and then we can do a precautionary pit stop to change tyres. It's just flat spotted.
Yeah, they have got an advantage over Verne of about 15 seconds at the moment. They could do with just a little more to make it clear on a pit stop. But Alonso's gap to Hamilton down to 1.9 seconds there, David. So he really was able to use that lap to gain a little bit more time on Lewis Hamilton. Gained some 0.8 of a second there.
Yeah, Hamilton's front left looking a little bit worn. He's showing signs of some graining there. That's allowing Alonso to get into that zone.
So Alonso comes up behind Massa, and this surely won't be taking too long for him to get past his teammate. Massa, who's had such a torrid time in Monaco and now here in Montreal with 3 crashes. The one here not quite as heavy as the ones in Monaco, but nonetheless something he's never experienced before, crashing quite so often and sequence like that, and really was disturbed by it yesterday. But he's driven a good race so far. Remember, he had to start a long way down, and Massa's in the top 10, he's in the points. Good chance for Ferrari to have both cars in the points here today, but of course the big rivals Red Bull are also scoring well. So Alonso laps the Marussia, no problems there at all, and continues on his way. In the battle of the young teams, it's Jules Bianchi, by the way, who is leading that in the Marussia from Chilton. They're ahead of Charles Pic, and of course we've lost Guido van der Garde. We've also lost Nico Hulkenberg from the race. And what of the star of qualifying? Well, Valtteri Bottas, I have to report, I'm afraid he's all the way down in 14th place, and it does not look as though Williams are going to be able to score points here today. Just haven't got the dry weather pace that they need, have they?
No, I think it's been a mature drive from Bottas nonetheless. He got that grid position on merit. The team had a choice that they could make for qualifying, and it worked well on qualifying day. They clearly just don't, as you say, have the pace come race day.
Now, you're riding with Alonso, and he is closing that gap again. He's fastest through the first sector. Hamilton is up ahead, and he's gradually eking into that gap. And we've got Di Resta in the pits. So Di Resta has come into the pits at last. 57 laps on his medium compound tyres, the harder tyre. Well, let's hope the pit stop goes well for him. It does, and he's on the super softs. You have to use them at some point in the race, but if you only want to use them for 1 lap, that's fine. Well, he's actually got a bit more than that to do.
Brilliant drive from Paul this afternoon. He's going to come out well in front of his teammate Adrian Sutil, who's just gone down past the start-finish straight now.
Okay, Lewis, traction metrics are under 2,000, and attempts are looking good.
Please just let me drive, man.
We're getting a Kimi-style response from Lewis Hamilton there. Just let me drive, man.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing, but 3/10 gain again from Alonso. The gap down to 1.2 seconds. And Tom, you had to wait a long time to see that Force India Paul di Resta come into the pits, but it all seemed to go quite well when he did.
I was at the back of the garage actually, Ben, and it was a very, very late call because the guys were just sat on their chairs, goggles up on their foreheads. They didn't even have time to put their goggles down before they got the call to go out. They were still taking the blankets off as di Resta was about, well, I don't know, 15 metres away. So really late call from Paul, I think.
Very interesting. And Rosberg has also been into the pits there. They took that precautionary pit stop that we were wondering about. They mentioned on the radio. And Verne, now that's crucial too. Jean-Eric Verne has come into the pits. Remember, he's been running around in 6th position. He's going to try and come out ahead of di Resta. We'll have to see how that works.
Well, that's in response to di Resta making that stop. Paul's just gone through the last chicane as we speak. Jean-Eric Verne's just leaving the end of pit lane, so I think he's going to get out in front of him. There'll be a battle of fresh tyres for both those guys to the end.
Yeah, that's going to be a close run thing. But as you say, Verne has got out just in front, I think, of di Resta, but not by much. That's going to be very, very close. Wonderful. There we are looking at the Sutil with Hamilton, but it's Alonso who's closing. He's now within a second. He's in DRS range.
Yeah, and Sutil's being lapped by Hamilton, so you got to get out of the way. And you see the blue flashing lights there telling him you're costing time here. I would have liked to have seen Sutil get out of the way a bit earlier. He's not battling with these guys. You are a lap down. It's cost Hamilton's run wide as he goes through 6. That's going to allow Alonso to have a run on him down to the second chicane. He won't be happy. Well, I think it's kind of his ex-buddy Sutil. They used to be very close. Separated a little bit during the incident that put Adrian out of racing for a year. And well, Adrian Sutil not making it at all easy for Lewis Hamilton this afternoon when he's a lap down.
And Alonso is now right with the Mercedes in this race for second place. Webber, by the way, has dropped away. He hasn't maintained the same kind of charging pace that Alonso has. Webber has dropped to 9 seconds behind, so for whatever reason the Red Bull not as quick, but Alonso flying. Now Sutil gets out of the way of both cars and very much in the DRS zone still, of course, is Alonso. He made the move on Mark Webber down on this section.
Hamilton has DRS though because of being behind Sutil, so maybe he actually gave his old mate a favour.
In the end, but it's still very close. 10 laps to go then. Can Hamilton hang on for second, or are Ferrari going to get a car up into second place and just reduce the damage limitation, if you like, of Vettel beating them again? Vettel very much on his way to victory here in Canada, but who's going to get second place? Is it going to be Hamilton? Is it going to be Alonso? These two former teammates, that fiery relationship that existed when they were teammates at McLaren, when Hamilton burst onto the Formula One scene. Well, it's years behind them now. There does seem to be a good element of respect between the two, but Hamilton's got his work cut out in the remaining laps to try and keep that Ferrari behind. Now, there's an interesting shot. Give us an idea of just how quickly these cars are going.
It's down at turn 10. You'll see a little bit of back off on the front wing end flap as the load comes on. See the vibration there. There's obviously FIA load tests to make sure there's not too much deflection.
Yeah, I'm sure all the teams will be studying pictures like that. You don't often get to see that kind of example. Hamilton stays in front in the DRS zone here, but Alonso not quite close enough. This could be a real cat and mouse game now for the rest of this race, because in terms of tyre wear, they've got pretty much the same. In terms, yes, drive-through penalty for Sutil for ignoring blue flags, and that's damaging for Force India. He's going to lose places as a result of that, no doubt about it.
Well, he's going to drop out of top 10, I would have thought. Maybe just come in, well, maybe he'll come round in 10th. That'll promote Raikkonen and Massa. That's a little bit silly of Adrian. He's driven so well so far this year. There's just no point ignoring blue flags. You know what's going to happen. The rules are very clear. 2 marshals posts, you have to react. And you can't even claim that you couldn't see the blue flags. They've got those big boards flashing at you. Meanwhile, back with Alonso, this is a run down to 10. He'll be within the 1 second DRS activation zone as he breaks down. Look at the deceleration. Contrasting driving styles there. He goes a little bit wider on entry, trying to straighten the car. That Mercedes has good traction off of the corner, and then at this point, DRS will open up. You'll see Alonso close the gap on Hamilton. It's going to be too late though for the entry to the chicane at 13-14. Bit of traffic ahead. That's a Williams. Is that Bottas? And Maldonado, in fact. So will
Look
this
at
be an
Alonso.
opportunity?
He's close, but I'm not sure there's a chance there. As you say, the traffic might just affect things. Same strategy of tyres, if you look at the graphic these two have adopted, but Hamilton's tyres are just a fraction younger than Alonso's.
Blue flags, I think he said.
Right, okay, just trying to get the car of Maldonado moved out of the way as quickly as possible. Maldonado's running around in 17th place, and he does move out of the way. And Williams are still sadly not likely to score any points today. Hamilton really with the pressure on him, and I'm delighted to say that joining us from the pit wall, despite this being an exciting time for the team, is team principal of Mercedes, Ross Brawn. Ross, I think you're just about to lose your place. Alonso is drawing alongside Hamilton here, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to hold on to second place. Hamilton doing his utmost, and they're side by side. Well, how are you calling this one, Ross?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. This is actually why we're here this weekend, racing, and that's great stuff. We just really have been hurting with the traffic, and DRS is so powerful in Montreal.
It is.
We can see there how much he pulls back, and you've got DRS in this sector as well, which makes it
Here we go, it is Alonso taking second place. He's got past your man Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton back down to third. Ferrari fans happy, but not so good for you, Ross. Is there anything differently you could have done, or do you feel you got everything out of the tyres you could here today?
I think we've done the best we can. I don't know whether there's any chance of Lewis hanging on to stay on the DRS and get it back. Let's see what happens.
And generally, I mean, we're just looking at the replay of this. This has been a very different style of race, hasn't it? I mean, in Monaco, you very much controlled the pace with Rosberg, but in this race, it does seem as though it's just been pretty much flat out. Is that true?
Yeah, we have to watch it in some respects, but yeah, we're running as strong as we can. But as I say, DRS is such a factor that when someone gets on the back of you like that, it's difficult.
Great, well, thank you so much for joining us at such a critical phase of the race, Ross.
Cheers.
Good luck with the rest of it. So, Alonso now in second place, Hamilton is in third, Webber in fourth, and Rosberg in fifth place. And, well, Ferrari needed a performance like this today, David, because with Vettel on his way to winning, they've got to get the most of it they can.
Yeah, Mark Webber, we're seeing there, he was in the hunt to be able to look at a podium this afternoon, but he's allowed that gap to open up to about 8 seconds to the back of that battle from Alonso and Hamilton. So it's like Mark Webber said, well, okay, I've got some damage, I'm just going to settle for the points this afternoon.
Raikkonen is in 8th place, but that's under threat here from Felipe Massa. Massa going well in the other Ferrari, just 0.4 of a second behind when he came past last time, and of course his tyres are very much younger than Kimi Raikkonen, who is trying to get through this race on a one-stop strategy, whereas Massa has already made 2 stops, so his tyres much fresher than the Lotus ahead, and I don't think that Raikkonen's going to be able to hold on much longer. Now on board with Lewis Hamilton here, you know, he's not given up, has he?
No, he's in the DRS activation zone, and he's got better traction from what we could see last time around. What can Alonso do? He'll have to be defensive with these curves, but Hamilton's going to be in the DRS zone. It's going to pop open. Is he going to have another pass into the last chicane?
Alonso goes defensive to the inside, DRS operating on them. Oh, careful, boys. We've seen how front wing can easily make contact with rear tyre. Hamilton loses a bit there through the chicane as a result of that, but don't count Hamilton out yet for this second place.
No, Alonso was very clever there. He really slowed the pace of the 2 cars down into the last chicane, and he kind of used it almost like a safety car restart, and that meant Hamilton couldn't get on the power until the Ferrari man decided.
So that one didn't work, but Hamilton might have a bit more time. He's still got slightly fresher tyres, just by a couple of laps than Alonso, but maybe that could make a difference. Meanwhile, further down in the top 10, we were talking about Jean-Eric Vergne having come out after his pit stop ahead of Di Resta. Well, Vergne's doing fine so far in terms of maintaining pace, and Di Resta hasn't been able to close that gap, so it's Vergne 6th, Di Resta 7th, and then Raikkonen with Massa chasing.
And looking at Perez now, he's only 2 seconds behind Sutil. McLaren have had something like 66 races of consecutive point-scoring races. So there's a lot at stake this afternoon, a lot more than just 1 point. That unbroken point-scoring record for McLaren now rests in the hands of Perez. Can he cut that gap to Sutil?
Well, that's interesting. 5 laps to go. Soutel, of course, had that penalty, and that's what's dropped him down to 10th position. Further down the order, Grosjean is running around in 13th place. Let's take another look here. Alonso. Oh, getting some oversteer, isn't he?
Got on the sausage curb, and that's a replay of, just watch what he does here. There was contact, you can see the Mercedes touched the back of the Ferrari, and there's some bit of carbon flew up into the air.
Well, these wide front wings, it is one change next year actually, David. This very full width front wing is going to be slightly narrower again under the new technical regulations, and I for one am not unhappy about that. It is almost too easy to clip these front wings with the full width.
Well, you've got no visibility of where your front wing is when you sit in the cockpit.
Oh, that's Gutierrez stopped.
Yeah, as he made contact with the tyres, it looks like he is pretty much embedded in there. Well, where what corner is that? Is that, yeah,
third one.
Yeah, it looks like he's gone straight over. Is that leaving the pits? I think it was indeed. He's been leaving the pits, and on the pit out, he's locked up and made contact with the tyres.
Oh dear, that's an embarrassing end to the race for Esteban, unless he had a wheel problem, unless, of course, I suppose it's always possible something wasn't attached properly, but Esteban Gutierrez walks away from the Sauber.
Was DRS disabled? We've got pickup truck there to remove that Sauber. They don't have the benefit of a big crane like you would have in Monte Carlo to remove those cars.
Only the third car out of this race. We lost Guido van der Garde and Nico Hulkenberg after they made contact earlier. Now, on board with Massa, he's still behind Kimi Raikkonen, but of course can't overtake now, and DRS is disabled. This is into that area where the car's being recovered, and he has to sit in behind the Lotus for the moment. Meanwhile, Hamilton is still behind Alonso, but the gap still just 1.3 seconds. Vettel is way out in front in this race. He's 19 seconds to the advantage. Webber, you just saw go through the shot. He's 4th, and he's a clear 4th, with Rosberg some 40 seconds behind him in 5th. And then, as we mentioned, Verne and Di Resta. Then this battle between Raikkonen and Massa. This is for 8th place. Soutel is still in 9th. And Perez is still not in the points for McLaren at the moment. He's in 11th with Button 12th.
Now, I wonder what happened for Paul Di Resta last time around. 20.8 lap. That's about 3 seconds or so slower than he was running. So maybe a bit of traffic. Still a 7-second gap to Raikkonen behind. So should be more than comfortable to maintain that 7th place.
So still, DRS has still disabled, I think. Yeah, we've still got the yellows out, so they won't be able to use DRS. So this is frustrating for Massa, because he can get close to the back of the Lotus, but he can't quite overtake it.
And he'll be coming up to a flashing yellow zone, so he won't be able to pass Raikkonen on the run down into turn 1.
So can he just conserve the tyres and hope that they get that car moved out of the way before the checkered flag comes out? Raikkonen still on target to match Michael Schumacher's record of 24 consecutive points finishes. It is easier nowadays, of course. You get points all the way down to 10th position. But nonetheless, when you consider he's come back into Formula One and only failed to score on one occasion since his return, it's a very impressive return for Kimi Raikkonen. But there's Sebastian Vettel. We haven't seen much of him in the last few laps, but finally it does look as though the Canadian Grand Prix is going to go his way. The nervous twitch from Christian Horner. Red Bull have never won a race in North America at all, neither in Canada nor in the USA. It's such a big market for Red Bull. It's such a big deal for them to win in this part of the world, and it does look as though it's going to happen this time.
Well, it's been pretty dominant. He was incredible through that damn qualifying session, and in the end, we've not had the tyre conservation issues that we've seen at other Grand Prix, and that's allowed all of these drivers to really wring the necks of their cars this afternoon. I think it's been a thrilling race personally. Maybe a bit boring having Sebastian so far out front, but there's been some great battles in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, in terms of the championship, of course, this will be great news for Sebastian Vettel. He'll open up that advantage. He'll have 37-point lead over Fernando Alonso. So it's a good advantage to have at this stage of the season. Mind you, Alonso had a 40-point lead during last year and it didn't go his way. Back with Massa here, and as the laps really begin to tick away, not many opportunities. Is he going to be able to get past Kimi Raikkonen?
He's going to have a go, get himself in the position down into the second chicane. Raikkonen getting good drive off of turn 7 and 8. Well, it's all about having a nice clean chicane here.
He'll definitely be within the 1 second at the DRS detection point, which is just coming up. So if we are clear now. We've got no yellow flags down at the first turn. Vettel's onto his final lap, but what's going to happen here between Raikkonen and Massa? That's the big question.
Well, he's right there in the zone. Let's see how good is the top speed of this Ferrari with DRS. I think he's going to have enough, Ben.
Yeah, he's closing on Raikkonen. Raikkonen goes to the inside, Massa goes to the outside, and there's nothing Raikkonen can do. His tyres are much older. He had to brake so much earlier than Felipe Massa, and Massa moves into 8th place. By the way, Mark Webber suddenly, out of nowhere, has just set fastest lap, 1:16.1. Although keep an eye on Vettel, because he's just set the fastest first sector of anybody, and we know how Vettel loves to get in front. And in fact, this would be, he got pole position. He has, I think, led every lap, hasn't he, of this race, even with pit stops and things. Pretty much, or did Hamilton get in front? But I think he's been in front the whole race, and if he gets fastest lap, then that would be the grand slam of doing everything you can at a Grand Prix, and a racing driver loves to do that. Fastest lap would be the icing on the cake. Is he going to do it? He is going to take the win, there's no doubt about that. Sebastian Vettel comes out of the final chicane in Canada. He wins in Canada for the first time. Third time lucky in terms of pole positions over the last few years. He has taken victory for Red Bull. It's his 29th career win. He did not get fastest lap on that last lap. He did back it off in the end. But it's his 3rd win of 2013. And it also gives him a very useful championship advantage. Alonso finishes 2nd. Hamilton finishes 3rd. So Hamilton tried to fight back, but he couldn't do it in the end. Alonso coming from 6th on the grid to finish in 2nd place. Hamilton on the podium again, though. That's the 3rd time this year that Hamilton has finished in 3rd. Webber finishes in 4th from Rosberg in 5th position. And we think that Jean-Eric Vergne has held on to take 6th. Yes, he has, from Paul Di Resta in 7th. Good run, though, from Di Resta once again to get into the points.
Fantastic, Seb. You won the Canadian Grand Prix. Fantastic. Makes up for 2 years ago. Brilliant drive. Fantastic.
Yes! We won Canada! Thank you, boys. Thank you. The car was amazing. The car was absolutely amazing. Thank you, boys. Sorry for the little off towards the end, but the car was fantastic. Woohoo! Yes!
So one of the few Grand Prix missing from his impressive CV. The triple world champion wins in Canada, and he does it in impressive style. 14.4 seconds the advantage. He really did show it to the opposition today. Mark Webber in the other Red Bull, well, he finishes down in 4th position in the end. Just in that final stint, didn't seem to be able to match the pace that Alonso was catching Hamilton. Remember, he did have damage on the car, though, that front wing damage, which they decided not to change because he would have lost time in the pits. And you have to say that's probably why Webber wasn't able to continue that kind of pace.
Yeah, he was right there until about 3/4 of the way through the race, and then backed it off.
So there's the result. Vettel, the race winner from Alonso and Hamilton. A real mix of constructors up there, with Red Bull then getting into 4th place as well. Rosberg in 5th, and then Vettel lapped all the others from 6th onwards. Vergne, though, his best ever finish in 6th. Di Resta a fighting 7th. Similar for Massa, coming from a long way back. Raikkonen in the points, matching Michael Schumacher's record of 24 consecutive points finishes. But, David, McLaren did fail to get into the top 10, so it does end that amazing streak of finishes in the top 10, scoring points for McLaren. 64, I think it is, consecutive points finishes. It's ended here in Canada. They finish 11th and 12th. Grosjean 13th, then Bottas, sadly not in the points for Williams. Ricciardo, Maldonado. Bianchi won the Battle of the Young Teams from Peak, Chilton, and we lost the 3 cars of Gutierrez, Hulkenberg and Van der Gaard.
Very good job this weekend, Lewis. Very good job. We know we've still got to find a bit more in the car, but and the traffic didn't help today, but very good job.
And there was Ross Brawn just congratulating Lewis Hamilton. And brilliant for us to have Ross with us just at the moment. But I mean, it wasn't brilliant for him, but very exciting as Alonso managed to claim that 2nd place. And Alonso drove brilliantly today to maximise what he had with the Ferrari. But Sebastian Vettel continues on his winning ways. And, you know, people say, well, he's got the best car, but when you see the kind of performance he puts in, David, especially in the wet qualifying yesterday, it doesn't really matter what the car is, it's about pure driving talent, and he still put it on pole position.
Amazingly, some people still question how good he is. They say, well, it's all about the car. You know, I consider Mark Webber to be a quality race driver, and Sebastian just seems to manage to get the rub of the luck, deliver when it matters in qualifying. And how often have we seen him pole position, convert that, break the DRS zone by lap 2, and then just march away with the Grand Prix. He fought for it today. He touched the wall at turn 4. He ran wide on the entry to turn 1, so that was an aggressive drive there out front, and a massive winning margin, it has to be said.
Yeah, hugely impressive, 14.4 second winning margin, but Alonso, I think, will be relatively satisfied. He would love to have seen Vettel not score, of course, from the championship point of view, but he stays in the hunt by moving up to second, and it will have moved Alonso into second place in the points now. And this was Massa, a replay, of course, of Massa getting past Raikkonen, as across the line, Sebastian Vettel finally took victory. He came within half a lap of doing this 2 years ago. Jenson Button, of course, beat him on that last lap in that incredibly wet, dry Grand Prix that went on for over 4 hours in terms of overalls from start to finish. He lost it on that occasion, but this does surely make up for that to a certain extent, because he has dominated this one. And nice shaking of hands there between the guys. Let's listen in and see if we can learn anything.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know. It's just hit me in the first sector. That was traffic anyway, so. Yeah. Anything, it should have been the lap before, so.
Traffic was dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Traffic certainly wasn't easy today, and they're referring to that. Look in the constructors' points, how Mercedes are now ahead of Lotus. The Red Bull opening up that advantage ever more. Alonso studying the timing screens. When they're studying those screens there, David, what are they looking for? I know, and obviously they're looking to see where other people finished, but are they able to learn anything more than that?
Yeah, just lap times, gaps, things like that. You know, they've only had the benefit of looking out through their helmet and that very small aperture that tells them what's going on in the world. So this is a little update. How did Massa get on? Where's my buddy Suttel? It's their opportunity. We've had the benefit of watching this 70-lap Grand Prix. They've been too busy being in it.
So now it's time for them to be heading out into the podium area, and there's a mass ranks of cameras there today to pick it up, to send it around the world. Hamilton then not quite managing to hold on to second place, but still a very solid performance from him today. Alonso second, but finally Sebastian Vettel manages to win in Canada, and the Red Bull team take a victory here as well. The anthems play out, something Sebastian Vettel is very accustomed to, but surely with a greater satisfaction today, finally winning this Canadian Grand Prix, which has escaped him in the past. That's the trophy that he's been wanting to get hold of, and he did it so superbly well today that nobody else really saw where he went. He was so far up the road. There's his race engineer, Rocky. And a lovely opportunity for him to go and pick up the Constructors' Trophy. We often hear him on the radio, of course, and his opportunity to celebrate this victory. They work together so well, the pair of them. They seem to mind read each other, and even though Rocky occasionally berates him, it is a good relationship. But Fernando Alonso then taking the second place after starting further back. They still have a little bit of work to do, Ferrari, but they have got a competitive car. We've seen that. He's won twice this year. And now another podium keeps him solidly in the championship hunt. And Hamilton, another third place. He hasn't had the victory that teammate Rosberg has had at Monaco victory, but he has, again, been consistently scoring solid points for the team. And he's got to be looking forward to the British Grand Prix in a few weeks' time. Celebration time here in Canada, though. And a little bit of a break comes up after this for these guys. A couple of weekends off before they go to the wide open expanses of the fast Silverstone circuit. And each of these guys have won there in the past, and of course it'll be very important to try and pick up the victory. A little while since Hamilton won there. Brilliant victory back in 2008. I wonder if he's going to have the car to enable him to do that this time. So the celebration's virtually complete. Rocky looking absolutely soaked in champagne, but he's up there as well for the photographs. Nope, don't drop it. Right, and it's time for the podium interviews to be taking place. And doing the interviews on this occasion, it is once again going to be our very own Eddie Jordan. It's been a great track for him. We've got his first points as a team owner here in Canada. So let's see what Eddie had to say.
Wow, 3 world champions. I'm spoiled for choice here. What a great win, textbook win, pole position. You seem to win it at ease. Come on, tell me about it.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you, everybody. I think it was it wasn't that bad for us, I think. Yeah, great race. I had a very good start, which was important. And then I was able to really go with the car. And yeah, obviously on the super soft, we saw the tires were falling apart, but I think we were just as good as everybody else. I was able to build a gap, and then yeah, kept that gap basically through the race. At some stages we had a full pit stop on hand. Obviously it's yeah, a little bit easier then to control the race, control the gaps, etc. But great race, great job by the team. Perfect pit stops, even though we had some time on hand. And also for North America, I think it's a great race for Infinity. All in all, I think you know, very important for a race for us to win. Finally, we got it off the list. Very proud of that. Sun came out today, couldn't get any better. So racing in front of the crowd here is always.
I have to ask you about that, because it seems quite unbelievable to us that you've never won here before, or indeed has Red Bull. So how does that mean to get the monkey off the back, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had good races before, but yeah, it didn't come together to win. 2 years ago I was very close. I lost it in the last lap. That was my mistake, so made up for that today. Great feeling, as I said. Great car today by the team, and I think we were able to really pull away from the rest of the field, which was most important, to then control the race. Yeah, I could really enjoy every single lap. Difficult at stages with the traffic, but as I said, great, and I'm sure we have a...
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix and the leader of the championship. When I read your report yesterday, when you said that you thought you may have a chance to come from 6th position to hopefully get a win here, I was saying, how's he going to try and do that? And you nearly did it. Magic, magic, tenacious drive.
Well, hello everybody, first of all. Bonjour. Yes, it was yesterday. Obviously, we didn't have a good qualifying. I didn't put the lap together, and also the conditions didn't help. But we knew that the pace on dry conditions of the car on Friday was good, so we had some hopes. Obviously, we are fighting with top drivers, and I have a very good fight with Mark, with Nico, with Luis at the end. And it's not easy to, even if you have a little bit more pace, they are super talented ones, and it was difficult race. But at the end, I think this second place has a victory taste, because we scored some good points after a very difficult weekend.
Fernando Alonso, Ferrari, second place. And what about Lewis Hamilton? You seem to have a lot of fans here, Lewis.
I have a great time every year, and thank you so much for the support. I have a great time.
I've got to ask you, we all were enthralled how clean, how correct, and yet how exciting the fight was with Fernando at the last cup. What did you damage on the car?
I think some small part of my wing came off, but that's, it was very, very close. We had a good battle. He was very fair, and, I hope that we can get a bit quicker in the next race.
You qualified in front of your teammate, you raced in front of your teammate. That must have been a bit of a help after Monaco, I presume. You feel really good about going forward with this team?
Yeah, I mean, the car's getting better, and, the guys are doing a fantastic job, so we just need to keep pushing to close the gap to these guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's show you your appreciation, please. Our winners today, fantastic job. Thank you, Montreal, you've been fantastic to us.
Well, Vettel has finally won in Canada, but there's no question that the locals adore Alonso, and the two of them are once again 1 and 2 in the championship.